I stood in the doorway of what used to be my bedroom, staring at my sister's things spread across my space as my mother casually explained, "You can sleep on the couch now." My childhood posters were already replaced by her photos, for years away at college, apparently enough to erase my place. "What do you mean?" I ask, my voice steady despite the sudden hollowness in my chest. "Where are my things?" My mother sighs like I'm being difficult. "Most of it's in boxes in the garage. Kira needed more space, and you're barely here anyway." She checks her watch. "Dinner's at 6. She walks away, conversation finished in her mind. I remain frozen in the doorway, staring at the transformation. My sister Kira's makeup clutters the desk where I wrote my college application essays. Her clothes overflow the closet where my academic awards once hung. The walls, once pale blue at my choosing, are now painted lavender. The methodical erasure of my existence is breathtaking in its completeness. "Oh, you're finally home." Kira appears behind me, 17 and glowing with the confidence of the favored child. She breezes past into what was my room. "Mom said you wouldn't mind. It's so much bigger than my old room." She flops onto the bed, my bed, now dressed in her preferred zebra print comforter. "I wasn't told about this," I say carefully, cataloging each detail of the room's transformation rather than giving in to the anger bubbling beneath my sternum. Kira shrugs, attention already on her phone. "Mom said you're never home anyway. You're coming back to campus after winter break, right? It's just a few weeks on the couch. But we both know it's more than that. It's the physical manifestation of what I've always suspected. My place in this family is conditional, temporary, erasable." I retreat downstairs, where the living room couch, my new bed, sits in full view of the kitchen, television, and front door. No privacy, no door to close, no space to call my own in the house my college fund helped maintain. That detail sits heavy in my mind as I inspect the couch's sagging cushions. For 3 years, I've sent half my earnings from my campus job home to help with expenses. Money that could have gone to my own apartment fund, redirected to support a household that has now literally pushed me into the margins. My mother bustles around the kitchen, preparing a welcome dinner that somehow includes all of Kira's favorites and none of mine. I watch her efficient movements, the way she periodically calls upstairs to ask if Kira needs anything. Not once does she glance at me, sitting silently with my suitcase still beside me. When my father arrives home from work, he offers a brief hug before settling into his recliner. "Good to have you back, kiddo. How was the drive?" "Fine," I say, waiting for him to notice something off, to question why my luggage sits in the living room rather than in my bedroom. He doesn't. The couch pulls out, he offers after dinner, finally acknowledging my new sleeping arrangement with a casualness that suggests complete prior knowledge. There are sheets in the hall closet. That night, I lie awake on the lumpy pull-out mattress, the glow of the street lamp filtering through thin curtains, the hum of the refrigerator a constant companion. From upstairs comes the muffled sound of laughter, my mother and Kira, sharing a private joke in the hallway outside my former room. I don't cry. I don't rage. Instead, I observe, calculate, consider. For years, I've worked myself to exhaustion maintaining a full scholarship, working 20 hours weekly to send money home, sustaining a 3.9 GPA to make them proud. All while Kira failed classes, ignored curfews, and accumulated everything from designer clothes to the latest iPhone. My phone buzzes with a text from my best friend Ashley. "How's home?" I stare at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above me. "Home. Is that what this is?" "Fine," I reply, unwilling to expose the raw wound just yet. Catching up with family, I close my eyes, forcing slow, measured breaths. This isn't a moment for emotional reaction. This isn't a night for confrontation without strategy. Tomorrow I'll begin a careful assessment of exactly what my options are, what leverage I might have, what plan I can construct from the ruins of my expectations. Because one thing is absolutely clear as I lie on this sagging mattress in the living room. The dynamics of this family have been revealed with crystal clarity, and they will never be the same again. My mother's voice echoes in my head as I drift into uneasy sleep. "You can sleep on the couch now." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "This is temporary." Not even, "We needed to make a change." Just the cold reality that my space, my history, and apparently my standing in this family were things they felt entitled to reallocate without consultation or concern. BY morning, the shock has crystallized into something harder, clearer. I fold the sheets with precise movements, tuck the mattress back into the couch, and place my suitcase neatly against the wall. No one else is awake yet. I make coffee and sit at the kitchen table, laptop open, beginning what looks like casual browsing, but is actually the first stage of something much more deliberate. The family that casually erased me is about to discover I've been paying closer attention than they realized, and I've been keeping receipts. Morning brings the mundane rhythm of family life continuing around me as if nothing has changed. My mother makes breakfast, calling upstairs for Kira, who descends 40 minutes later. My father reads news on his tablet, occasionally commenting on headlines. No one acknowledges the elephant in the room, my suitcase still standing sentinel by the couch, my presence reduced to visitor status. I sip coffee, observing this choreography of normalcy with detached interest. When my mother asks about my plans for the day, I keep my response vague. Just getting settled. Organizing my things. What I don't say. I'll be conducting a thorough assessment of exactly where I stand in this household, legally and financially. While my family disperses, father to work, mother to errands, Kira to meet friends, I begin my methodical evaluation. First, the financial component. I open my laptop and access my banking history, creating a spreadsheet of every transfer I've made to my mother over the past 3 years. The numbers are sobering. $325 monthly without fail, totaling over $11,700. Money earned working early mornings in the campus coffee shop before classes and weekend shifts at the library. Money that could have funded an apartment deposit, a used car, graduate school applications. I find the text messages where my mother requested these contributions. The furnace repair cost more than expected. Can you send extra this month? Kira needed a laptop for school. Anything you can contribute would help. You know how tight things are since your father's hours were cut. Each message carefully framed to emphasize family obligation while implying my responsibility to support them. Despite being a full-time student supporting myself, I scroll further, finding the message from last summer that now carries new significance. Of course, your room will be waiting for you at break. This is always your home. I save screenshots of each exchange, organizing them chronologically in a dedicated folder. Next, I investigate the legal status of my residence. Without a formal rental agreement, do I have any tenant rights? A quick research session reveals that in our state, even without paperwork, regularly contributing to household expenses establishes certain protections. I save relevant statutes to my growing documentation. BY afternoon, I've compiled a comprehensive picture of my contributions to this household, not just financial, but practical. I've maintained a 3.9 GPA while sending money home. I've worked holidays and summers, contributing labor to house maintenance. I've sacrificed my own comfort repeatedly for family stability. When I hear my mother's car in the driveway, I close my laptop and move to the garage, ostensibly looking for my boxed belongings. What I find is revealing. Many boxes labeled with my name contain household items, winter decorations, old kitchenware, photo albums. Only 3 boxes actually contain my personal possessions, and a quick inventory confirms my suspicions. Many valuable items are missing. My collection of leather-bound classics from Grandma? Gone. My record player and vinyl collection? Nowhere to be seen. The sterling silver jewelry box from my graduation? Vanished. I take photos of each box, documenting the state of my remaining possessions without disturbing anything. Evidence gathering, not confrontation. Not yet. When Kira returns home, I observe her with new clarity. The designer jeans she wears casually cost approximately 2 of my monthly contributions. Her nails, freshly manicured, represent hours of my labor serving coffee to impatient students. The phone she can't stop checking costs more than 3 months of my careful budgeting. "What are you staring at?" she asks, catching my gaze. "Just noticed your new phone," I reply evenly. "Nice upgrade." She shrugs, defensive but pleased with the recognition. "Mom said I needed it for school projects." I nod, filing away this information alongside everything else I've gathered today. That evening, I call my grandmother, ostensibly to catch up, but strategically seeking additional context. "How long have you known about my room situation?" I ask casually after our initial greetings. Her hesitation speaks volumes. "Oh, honey, your mother mentioned making some changes, but I didn't realize." She pauses. "I didn't know they hadn't discussed it with you." The pattern clarifies. This wasn't a last-minute decision, but a deliberate plan, concealed from me while visible to others. "Your mother said you're barely home anyway," my grandmother continues, echoing my mother's justification verbatim. "I told her she should at least wait until you graduated, but you know how she is when Kira wants something." Indeed, I do. After we hang up, I call my campus housing office. Though it's break, the administrative assistant answers. "I'm exploring options for off-campus housing next semester," I explain. "Could you direct me to appropriate resources?" She emails me listings, information about rental assistance, and names of students seeking roommates. I save everything, not committing but building my knowledge base. Creating options. My final call is to Ashley, who worked summers at a legal clinic. I explain the situation plainly, without emotional embellishment. "That's seriously messed up," she says. "Especially since you've been sending them money." I'm not sure what my next step should be, I admit. I don't want to burn bridges, but I can't accept this arrangement either. "Document everything," she advises. "Know your leverage before you make any moves." "Want to crash at my place for a few days while you figure it out?" I decline for now, preferring to maintain my position within the household while I complete my assessment. "Thanks, though. I'll let you know if things change." That night, as I again prepare the pull-out couch while family life continues around me, my mother and Kira laughing upstairs, my father absorbed in television mere feet away, I feel strangely calm. The initial shock has been replaced by methodical planning, by growing clarity about my position and options. I've spent years being the responsible one, the achiever, the provider, all while receiving progressively less recognition and respect. The room reassignment isn't the problem. It's merely the most visible symptom of a fundamental imbalance I can no longer ignore. As I lie awake in the living room, mapping patterns on the ceiling with calm detachment, I'm already plotting the precise, measured response that will redefine my place not just in this household, but in my own life. 3 days into my visit home, I establish a routine that allows for strategic information gathering while maintaining a neutral facade. I rise early, using the quiet hours to continue my research before anyone else wakes. During the day, I help with household tasks, observe family dynamics, and systematically uncover the leverage points that will become crucial to my strategy. Today's target: the home office where family financial records are kept. With my mother at her book club and my father at work, I have a 2-hour window to explore without interruption. Kira remains upstairs, music blaring, oblivious to my movements. The office is technically accessible to everyone, making this information gathering rather than snooping. Still, I move efficiently, leaving everything exactly as I found it. The filing cabinet yields a treasure trove of revelations. First, the mortgage statements. Despite my father's frequent complaints about carrying the financial burden, the documents show my mother is the sole owner of the house, a detail I file away as potentially significant. Next, utility bills showing consistent payment struggles until approximately 3 years ago, precisely when I began sending money home. Most illuminating are the credit card statements. For months I've transferred funds for household essentials, yet the statements show a pattern of frivolous spending immediately following my contributions. My money arrives. Kira gets new clothes. I send extra for car repairs. My mother books a weekend spa trip. I photograph key documents with my phone, carefully returning each to its precise position. This isn't about gathering ammunition for confrontation, but understanding the true financial dynamics underlying my displacement. My next discovery comes unexpectedly during a casual conversation with Uncle Mark, who calls while I'm alone in the house. "How's the couch treating you?" he asks after preliminary small talk. I pause, recalibrating. "You knew about that?" "Your mom mentioned the room switch months ago," he says, confirming my suspicion that this was long planned. Said something about Kira needing more space for high school. Interesting. She didn't mention it to me until I walked in the door 3 days ago. Silence stretches between us. Then, that doesn't seem right, Valerie. You've been helping them out financially, haven't you? This opening allows me to ask carefully calibrated questions that reveal additional context. Uncle Mark, it seems, has been watching the situation with growing concern. My mother has apparently complained about my lack of contribution to family finances, a narrative directly contradicted by my carefully documented transfers. If you need options, he offers before ending our call, your aunt and I have that finished basement. Just say the word. Another piece clicks into place. Not just information now, but potential support. Alternative housing if necessary. Family allies who recognize the inequity. That afternoon, I encounter perhaps my strongest leverage point by accident. While searching for a missing charger, I discover a stack of past due notices tucked beneath magazines on the coffee table. The family's financial situation appears more precarious than previously indicated, with multiple accounts in collection status. The timing of these notices coincides with my reduced contributions during final exams last semester, when I worked fewer hours to focus on studies. I realize with calm clarity, they depend on my money more than they've admitted. This doesn't bring satisfaction, only strategic awareness. My financial contributions represent significant leverage in any future negotiation. As I replace the notices exactly as I found them, Kira bounds downstairs, oblivious to my discovery. Mom said to tell you we're having company for dinner, she announces, already turning back toward the stairs. Grandma and Grandpa are coming over. Perfect timing. My grandparents represent both potential allies and witnesses to whatever comes next. That evening, as I help prepare dinner, I observe my mother's subtle performance, placing family photos featuring me in previously empty frames, bringing out the good dishes we use for special occasions, creating an atmosphere of normal family harmony for my grandparents' visit. Valerie, could you set the table? She asks, her tone artificially warm. Use the dining room, not the kitchen table. I comply, noting the calculated shift in her behavior. The woman who casually informed me I'd be sleeping on the couch now wants to project family unity to external observers. During dinner, my grandfather asks about my studies, my campus job, my plans after graduation. I answer honestly but selectively, watching my mother tense with each mention of my academic success and work ethic. We're so proud of how Valerie manages her responsibilities, my grandmother says. Working while maintaining such excellent grades. My mother redirects smoothly. Kira just made honor roll this semester. First time ever. That's wonderful, I say sincerely. Congratulations, Kira. My sister blinks, surprised by my genuine praise rather than the resentment she clearly expected. Thanks, she mumbles, studying me with newfound uncertainty. After dinner, my grandfather pulls me aside while others clear dishes. Your grandmother mentioned the sleeping arrangements, he says quietly. That doesn't seem fair, considering everything. Everything? I echo, providing space for him to elaborate. Your mother mentioned you've been helping with expenses, he says carefully. We didn't realize how much until recently. Another confirmation that my contributions have been acknowledged to others while simultaneously being minimized to me. I absorb this information without visible reaction. I'm still figuring things out, I tell him noncommittally. He presses something into my hand, a check folded discreetly. For your apartment fund, he murmurs. Don't tell your mother. She might take it personally. I thank him with a quick hug, another ally identified, another resource secured. When my grandparents leave, the carefully maintained facade of family harmony dissolves. My mother reverts to barely acknowledging my presence. Kira retreats to what was my room. My father settles into his recliner with tablet in hand, and I return to the couch, opening my laptop to update my growing strategic assessment with today's discoveries. The picture is becoming clearer. My financial contributions have been essential, not supplemental. My displaced status in the family has been normalized to others before I was even informed. The narrative about my role has been carefully managed to minimize my value while maximizing my obligations. Most importantly, I now understand exactly what leverage I have to change this dynamic. As I organize today's findings. A text arrives from Ashley. Any updates on the situation? I respond simply, gathering information. Making plans. I'll be ready to move soon. Not yet, but soon. First, I need one more piece of information, the exact timing of next month's mortgage payment, when my contribution will be most critically needed. Then, with perfect strategic timing, I'll make my first move. The family that casually displaced me is about to discover I've been paying much closer attention than they realized, not just to where I sleep, but to exactly what I've been paying. 4.5 days into my couch residency, I finalize my strategic assessment and begin implementing concrete plans. The mortgage payment I've confirmed is due on the 3rd of each month, 10 days from now. Perfect timing for what comes next. My first priority, securing alternative housing. After reviewing multiple options, I arranged to view 3 apartments near campus. They're small studio units, but each offers something my current situation doesn't: privacy, security, and respect embedded in the very concept of a lease agreement. The second appointment proves promising. The apartment is tiny but functional, with a kitchenette, modest bathroom, and enough space for a bed and desk. Most importantly, it's within my budget if I reallocate the funds I've been sending home. The landlord, a retired professor, reviews my perfect payment history, excellent credit score, and academic standing. "The unit's yours if you want it," she says. "I can hold it with a deposit." I write the check immediately, using money from my grandfather's gift combined with my emergency fund. I'll sign the lease on Monday. With housing secured, I turn to financial separation. At the local branch of my bank, I open a new account at a different institution entirely, one my mother has no relationship with. I transfer the majority of my funds, leaving just enough in the original account to avoid triggering notifications. "I'd also like to ensure no one else can access this account," I explained to the banker. "Your current account shows your mother as a joint owner," he notes, confirming a suspicion I hadn't fully verified. "She has complete access to those funds." Another revelation that fails to surprise me. I complete the necessary paperwork to secure my new finances, then move to the next phase, documenting belongings. While my family attends Kira's winter choir concert, I methodically photograph every item of mine remaining in the house. From the boxes in the garage to personal items borrowed by Kira that I've located in my former room during her absences. I create a detailed inventory with approximate values, focusing especially on items with sentimental significance. My laptop contains everything academically crucial: papers, projects, research. Physical textbooks can be replaced if necessary. Photographs exist in cloud storage. I've already secured essential documents: birth certificate, social security card, passport, in a small fireproof security box I purchased yesterday. Next comes the support system. I call Ashley, who confirms I can stay with her family if needed before my apartment becomes available. I update Uncle Mark about my progress, not asking for help but keeping communication open. I meet my academic advisor for coffee, explaining potential disruptions to my return to campus. "I'm handling it," I assure her when concern creases her brow. "But I wanted you to be aware in case anything impacts my studies." "The school has emergency housing," she offers, "and additional financial aid for students in sudden need." I thank her, adding these options to my resource inventory without intending to use them. My careful planning has already created better alternatives. The final piece involves consulting a tenant rights advocate recommended by Ashley. Though our meeting is brief, it provides crucial information. "Without a formal rental agreement, the situation is complex," she explains. "But your regular financial contributions establish certain protections. They can't simply discard your belongings or change locks without notice." I nod, adding this information to my strategic foundation. "And my options for recovering those contributions? Small claims court would be your venue, but consider whether the financial recovery outweighs the relationship costs." "I understand," I reply, though my calculation on that point has already been made. The evening before my planned confrontation, I sit on the pull-out couch, finalizing details. My mother passes through the living room, pausing when she notices me typing. "Still up with schoolwork?" Even on break? Her tone carries the familiar mixture of superficial interest and underlying dismissal. Just organizing some financial matters, I answer truthfully, if incompletely. She nods absently. Don't forget, we need your contribution for this month's bills. Things are tight with the holidays. When do you need it by? I ask, my voice carefully neutral. The 3rd at the latest. Mortgage is due. I nod, as if this is routine rather than confirmation of my timeline. I'll make sure it's handled. Good girl, she says, the patronizing praise making something tighten in my chest. We count on you being responsible. Yes, I think, as she walks away. You certainly do. That night, I review my strategy once more. Every detail has been considered, from timing to tone, from financial implications to emotional preparation. I've secured my position physically, financially, and legally. I've documented evidence, gathered resources, and established multiple contingency plans. Tomorrow, the dynamics that have defined this household will change, not through emotional confrontation, but through the calm implementation of carefully considered consequences. The family that reduced me to couch dweller status is about to discover exactly what happens when I stop being the responsible one they've taken for granted. Morning arrives with a sense of focused clarity. Today marks 1 week since I returned home to find my existence erased from my bedroom. 7 days of observation, planning, and preparation leading to this carefully orchestrated moment. I wait until everyone is present for the rare family breakfast my mother has prepared. My father sips coffee, half hidden behind his tablet screen. Kira texts rapidly under the table, ignoring her pancakes. My mother bustles between stove and table, maintaining the illusion of domestic harmony. Perfect. I need to discuss something important, I begin, my voice calm but carrying enough authority to make them look up. It's about my living arrangements and financial contributions. My mother's spatula pauses mid-flip. What about them? I've been sending home $325 monthly for 3 years to support household expenses, I state, laying my printed spreadsheet on the table. That's over $11,700 total. My father lowers his tablet. Kira's fingers still on her phone. My mother's expression shifts between surprise and defensive irritation. I've documented every transfer, I continue, along with text messages showing what these funds were supposedly for. I place the folder of screenshots beside the spreadsheet. I've also noted when these contributions coincided with discretionary expenses like Kira's new phone, designer clothes, and your spa weekend in November. You're keeping track of how we spend money. My mother's voice rises slightly. That's not your place. It became my place when my money funded these purchases while I worked 20 hours weekly between classes. I reply evenly. The same money that apparently wasn't sufficient to maintain my bedroom in my absence. My father clears his throat. Valerie, families help each other. That's how it works. I agree completely. That's why I'm setting clear terms for how I'll continue helping this family. I place a third document on the table, a simple, bulleted list. These are my non-negotiable conditions moving forward. My mother snatches the paper, eyes widening as she reads my terms. Immediate return of my bedroom or cessation of all financial contributions. Return of all personal items removed without permission. Written acknowledgement of my tenant rights despite lack of formal rental agreement. This is ridiculous, she sputters. You can't make demands like this in our house. Actually, I can. The house is solely in your name, not Dad's, I note, watching my father's surprised expression confirm he didn't know this. And as someone who has established regular financial contributions to household expenses, I have certain legal protections as an occupant. Kira finally speaks, her voice smaller than usual. You'd really stop helping with bills over a bedroom? I turn to her, keeping my voice level. This isn't about the bedroom, Kira. It's about respect. Taking my room without discussion while accepting my financial support shows a fundamental lack of respect for my place in this family. We never asked you to send money home, my mother attempts, rewriting history with breathtaking confidence. I open my phone, playing the voicemail I've saved, her voice clearly asking for additional funds last summer, promising, your room will always be waiting for you. The silence that follows feels weighted with recognition, if not remorse. I've secured an apartment near campus, I inform them, revealing the next phase of my plan. If my conditions aren't acceptable, I'll be moving out permanently next week and redirecting my income to support my independent living costs. You're blackmailing us, my mother accuses, anger replacing her initial shock. I'm establishing boundaries, I correct her. Something I should have done years ago. My father, looking increasingly uncomfortable, finally addresses the financial implications. The mortgage payment is due next week. We're counting on your contribution. I'm aware. That's why you have until tomorrow to decide whether meeting my conditions is worth maintaining the financial arrangement we've established. Where are you going? My mother demands as I stand to leave. To visit Uncle Mark and Aunt Carol. I'll return tomorrow morning for your decision. My father rises halfway from his chair. Wait, we should discuss this. I've said everything necessary, I reply. The documentation speaks for itself. I'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. I walk out, overnight bag already packed and waiting by the door. The calculated exit achieves exactly what I intended, leaving them to confront the evidence and consequences rather than becoming entangled in emotional manipulation. Uncle Mark's supportive welcome confirms I've made the right choice. They didn't take it well? He asks as we drive away. They took it exactly as expected, I reply. Initial denial, then anger, then recognition of their financial dependence. You've really thought this through. I've had years to observe the patterns. I just needed the right catalyst to address them. That evening, my phone accumulates messages I don't immediately answer. My mother's alternate between guilt-inducing appeals and angry accusations. My father's attempt reason without acknowledging the underlying issues. Most surprising are Kira's confused, defensive, but containing the first hints of recognition that something fundamental has shifted. I respond only to the last, from my sister. Did you really need the money you've been sending home? Yes. I reply simply. I worked early mornings and weekends for it while maintaining a full scholarship. Her response comes hours later. I didn't know. The next morning, I return exactly at 10 a.m. My mother meets me at the door, her expression a careful mask of reconciliation that doesn't reach her eyes. We've discussed your concerns, she begins, the rehearsed quality of her words immediately apparent. Of course you can have your room back. Kira has already started moving her things out. I nod, neither celebrating nor acknowledging how quickly my unreasonable demands became acceptable when financial consequences loomed. And the other conditions? I ask. We'll gather your belongings from around the house, my father adds from behind her. Some items may take time to locate. I've made an inventory, I inform them, reinforcing that nothing has been overlooked. I'll help Kira transition back to her room today. My financial contribution for this month's mortgage will be transferred once the move is complete. The tension visibly drains from both parents' postures. Money would continue flowing, the primary concern underneath their sudden accommodation. As I carry my suitcase upstairs, passing Kira sullenly removing posters from what was briefly her room, I understand that this victory, while significant, is merely the first step in fundamentally redefining my position in this family. I've established boundaries and consequences. I've demonstrated strategic leverage. But the deeper recognition that I deserve basic respect regardless of financial contribution remains a work in progress that will require the next phase of my strategy. Perfectly timed to coincide with the upcoming family gathering where these dynamics will face their most public reckoning. Room restoration proceeds with mechanical efficiency. Kira relocates to her original bedroom with minimal verbal resistance, though her slammed doors and pointed sighs communicate plenty. My mother maintains careful politeness that never approaches actual remorse. My father attempts normalization, asking about classes and campus life as if the past week never happened. I manage it all with composed detachment, neither accepting their narrative nor creating unnecessary conflict. The financial transfer for this month's mortgage payment is made as promised, maintaining my end of our transactional relationship while setting clear expectations for the future. The extended family Christmas gathering at Grandma's house arrives 3 days later. This annual event, bringing together aunts, uncles, and cousins, represents the perfect stage for the next phase of my strategy. I dress with particular care, professional but understated, avoiding both the victim's dishevelment and the aggressor's intimidation. My mother watches nervously as I prepare, clearly calculating potential public relations damage. We don't need to discuss family matters with everyone, she says as we load the car. Some things should stay private. Translation: don't expose what happened. I won't volunteer information, I reply, the calculated precision of my wording evident only to me. I won't initiate, but I certainly won't conceal if asked. The gathering unfolds with traditional holiday choreography, food, gifts, reminiscences. I navigate social interactions with measured engagement, neither withdrawing nor performing excessive cheer. When my cousin Madison asks about my semester, I provide a factual summary of my academic achievements and work commitments. 20 hours weekly at campus jobs? That's impressive with your course load, she comments. What do you do with your earnings? The question, innocent but perfectly aligned with my strategy, creates my opening. Until recently, most of it went home to support household expenses, I answer truthfully, my volume calibrated to remain conversational while carrying to nearby relatives. My mother, hovering near the appetizer table, stiffens visibly. Really? Madison's surprise is genuine. Even while you're paying for college? My scholarship covers tuition and partial housing, I explain. I've worked additional hours to contribute about $325 monthly to my parents' household costs for the past 3 years. Uncle Mark, already aware of the situation, nods confirmation from across the room. My grandmother's eyebrows rise as she processes this information. That's a lot to expect from a full-time student, Madison observes. I shrug lightly. Family dynamics can be complicated. By now, several conversations have paused as relatives tune into ours. My mother makes a strategic retreat to the kitchen, my father awkwardly follows, and Kira becomes intensely interested in her phone. My grandmother approaches, steering me slightly away from the main group. Is this related to what happened with your bedroom? She asks directly. The question, loud enough to be heard by several nearby relatives, transforms my private experience into public knowledge. Exactly as anticipated. Yes, I confirm calmly. I returned from college to find my room had been given to Kira. I was told to sleep on the couch despite having contributed financially to household expenses throughout my education. The ripple effect is immediate. Aunt Carol's scandalized, "They did what?" emerges above the sudden murmurs. Uncle Mark confirms, "She's been sleeping on the pull-out couch in the living room." My grandfather, typically reserved about family matters, speaks with unexpected firmness. After sending money home all this time? I neither amplify nor minimize, simply providing factual responses to the questions that follow. When asked why I didn't mention this sooner, I explain I needed to assess my options carefully before discussing it. My mother emerges from the kitchen, attempting damage control with a strained laugh. It was just a temporary arrangement until we sorted things out. Valerie has her room back now. After she threatened to stop sending money, Kira mutters, surprisingly honest at the worst possible moment for my mother's narrative. The collective inhale from relatives is practically audible. My grandmother turns to my mother with unexpected directness. Diana, you took financial support from your daughter while attending college, then took away her bedroom? It wasn't like that, my mother attempts, but the unified expressions of disbelief around her indicate the narrative has slipped beyond her control. My grandfather, who rarely involves himself in family conflicts, addresses me directly. Has your education suffered from working these extra hours to support them? I've maintained my scholarship requirements, I answer, but I've had to decline research opportunities and internships that would have advanced my career prospects. Another wave of disapproving murmurs passes through the gathering. My father attempts intervention with forced joviality. It's all sorted now. No need to make a federal case of it. It's sorted because Valerie established appropriate boundaries, Uncle Mark corrects him. Not because you recognized your error. The conversation continues around me, relatives expressing disapproval, my parents attempting justifications that sound increasingly hollow, Kira uncomfortably witnessing the family's unified response. I remain calm at the center of the storm, neither fueling nor diminishing its intensity. By the time dessert is served, the family dynamic has visibly transformed. Relatives who once accepted my parents' authority without question now view them with new skepticism. My grandmother keeps me close, physically representing her allegiance. Multiple relatives have quietly offered support ranging from temporary housing to employment connections. Most telling is my mother's behavior, her usual confident social performance replaced by awkward attempts to rebuild her image. She hovers near me, performing exaggerated maternal concern, mentioning my achievements to anyone in earshot. Valerie has always been so independent, she tells my aunt, loudly enough to ensure I overhear. We're so proud of how she manages everything. The irony isn't lost on anyone present. As we prepare to leave, my grandfather pulls me aside. Your parents won't change overnight, he warns quietly. But the family sees clearly now. You're not alone in this. I nod, understanding the significance of this shift. What was once a private power struggle has become a publicly witnessed reckoning. My strategic patience, gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment, allowing consequences to unfold naturally rather than forcing confrontation, has accomplished more than angry accusations ever could. I end the car driving home, silence reigns. My parents avoid eye contact, processing the collapse of their carefully maintained family narrative. Kira stares out the window, perhaps contemplating her role in a dynamic she's benefited from but didn't create, and I sit quietly, neither gloating nor apologizing, understanding that today represents not an endpoint, but a turning point. The family gathering has accomplished exactly what I intended, creating public accountability that will reinforce the private boundaries I've established. The next phase begins tomorrow. Negotiating a new family relationship built on mutual respect rather than exploitation, disguised as family obligation. The apartment key feels substantial in my palm, a small metal embodiment of independence. My new studio isn't impressive by conventional standards, 440 square feet, basic appliances, walls that need fresh paint, but the significance transcends its physical attributes. This space is mine, secured through my own efforts, protected by a legal agreement that explicitly recognizes my rights and dignity. Last box, Uncle Mark announces, setting down a container labeled books beside my second-hand desk. He and Aunt Carol insisted on helping with the move, transforming what could have been a lonely transition into a supported fresh start. Thank you, I tell them, meaning far more than just the physical assistance. 2 weeks have passed since the family gathering that shifted the power dynamics so dramatically. 2 weeks of careful negotiations, pointed conversations, and strategic realignments within my family system. My decision to move forward with the apartment lease surprised my parents, who clearly believed our conflict had been resolved. When they returned my bedroom, their shock revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of what had transpired. They saw my boundary setting as a temporary rebellion, not a permanent recalibration of our relationship. But you have your room back, my mother had protested when I announced my moving plans. There's no need for this overreaction. This isn't about the room, I explained calmly. It's about establishing independence that can't be revoked based on someone else's convenience. My father, ever focused on financial implications, attempted a different angle. Paying rent doesn't make financial sense when you could live at home for free. It wasn't free, I reminded him. I was paying $325 monthly without basic tenant rights or respect. This apartment cost $650 with legal protections and privacy. The logic was unassailable, leaving them without effective counterarguments. As I arrange books on my shelf, my phone buzzes with a text from Kira. Can I come see your apartment tomorrow? This request represents one of the most surprising developments of recent weeks. While my parents have oscillated between guilt-inducing tactics and reluctant acceptance, Kira has undergone a more substantial transformation. Our conversation 3 days after Christmas marked the turning point. Why didn't you ever say anything? She had asked, perched awkwardly on the edge of my bed as I packed. About sending money home, I mean. Would it have mattered? I countered. Her silence answered more honestly than words could have. I didn't know you were working so much at school, she finally said. Mom always made it sound like you just had extra money. The conversation that followed revealed how completely she had accepted our parents' narrative, that I was financially comfortable, that my contributions were minimal and optional. that the family's financial struggles were unrelated to her consumption patterns. Grandpa showed me the math, she admitted. How much of their monthly budget came from you? How my new phone cost the same as your entire monthly contribution? This new awareness hasn't magically transformed her into a different person, but it has created space for a more honest relationship between us. Her text represents another small step in that evolution. I respond, sure. I should be finished unpacking by noon. The financial consequences for my parents manifested immediately after my contribution ceased. 2 days after I moved out, my mother called with barely concealed panic. The electricity bill is past due, she began without preamble. Could you send something to help? Just this once? The request confirmed exactly what my documentation had revealed. Their household budget had become structurally dependent on my income. Rather than adjusting expenses when my contribution stopped, they expected to simply extract additional funds. I can't do that, I replied evenly. My finances are now dedicated to supporting my independent living costs. But we're family, she countered, the familiar emotional lever that had worked so effectively in the past. Yes, we are, I agreed. Which is why I'm happy to help in other ways. I can review your budget if you'd like, or help identify expenses that could be reduced. Her silence conveyed exactly how unwelcome this alternative form of assistance was. Why the following week, the financial reality had forced concrete changes. Kira reported that their internet package had been downgraded, streaming services canceled, and her allowance eliminated. My father took on weekend shifts at the hardware store, work he had previously considered beneath his position. These adjustments, while difficult for them, represent necessary steps toward a more sustainable financial reality. One not subsidized by a college student working pre-dawn coffee shifts. Aunt Carol helps me arrange my small kitchen. She observes, your mother called me yesterday. What did she want? I ask, arranging mugs on the limited shelf space. To complain, initially. Then, surprisingly, to ask about budget management. Aunt Carol smiles slightly. Progress, perhaps. Progress indeed, though limitations remain clear. My mother has begun acknowledging the financial reality, but still struggles with the underlying power shift. My father alternates between resentment and reluctant adaptation. Both continue operating from the assumption that our relationship will eventually return to its previous form. They don't yet understand that some transitions are permanent. That evening, after Uncle Mark and Aunt Carol leave, I sit alone in my new space. The quiet is different from the isolation I felt on the pull-out couch. This solitude belongs to me, exists on my terms. I've maintained family connections while establishing unmistakable independence. My phone buzzes with messages from extended family checking in, friends offering congratulations. Even one from my grandmother sharing her recipe for inexpensive homemade bread. For your new kitchen, her message reads, the constellation of support surrounding me reinforces what the past weeks have taught me. True family relationships involve mutual respect, not unilateral sacrifice. Establishing boundaries doesn't damage healthy connections. It clarifies which relationships were healthy to begin with. I prepare for bed, in my space. I reflect on the journey from that moment of shock in my former bedroom doorway to this quiet evening of independence. The path wasn't primarily about reclaiming physical space, but recalibrating expectations, establishing boundaries, and recognizing my own worth within a system designed to exploit rather than support. Tomorrow brings new challenges. Balancing school and work without family subsidies, navigating evolving family relationships, building a truly independent adult life. But tonight, I sleep soundly in the knowledge that while the couch may have been temporary, the boundaries I've established are permanent. Spring semester starts with a rhythm entirely different from previous terms. Without the pressure to generate funds for family support, I've reduced my work hours to focus on academics and valuable unpaid opportunities. My mornings no longer begin at 4:30 a.m. for coffee shop shifts. Instead, I use those hours for a research assistantship that advances my career prospects while providing a modest stipend. 3 months have passed since I found my bedroom converted to my sister's space. 3 months of transformation, recalibration, and growth that extended far beyond the initial boundary setting. My apartment has become a genuine home. The walls now feature soft sage paint instead of institutional beige. A small herb garden thrives on the windowsill, basil, mint, and rosemary plants that represent small daily nurturing. The furniture remains sparse but purposeful, each piece selected with intention rather than inherited through obligation. Today marks another milestone, the first family dinner I'm hosting in my own space. The studio's limitations mean we'll use the small community room in the building's lobby, a space I reserved weeks ago in anticipation of this gathering. The guest list is selective: Kira, my grandparents, Uncle Mark, and Aunt Carol. My parents received a separate invitation for next weekend, a deliberate choice to maintain connections while establishing clear new patterns. The meal preparation feels symbolic, creating nourishment on my terms, offering hospitality from a position of autonomy rather than obligation. Nothing elaborate, just a simple lasagna, salad, and garlic bread that fit my student budget. Kira arrives first, 20 minutes early and unexpectedly helpful. Our relationship has evolved into something neither of us would have predicted 3 months ago. Mom wanted me to ask about your spring break plans, she says as she arranges silverware on the folding table. She's hoping you'll come home for at least part of it. I consider this as I check the lasagna. My relationship with our parents has stabilized into something functional if not entirely healed. Regular phone calls, occasional family meals, boundaries that remain firm despite periodic testing. I'll come for the weekend, I decide. I have a research conference during the first half of the break. Kira nods, accepting this limited commitment without the guilt trips that would have once accompanied it. Her own growth has been perhaps the most unexpected outcome of these months, her gradual recognition of the uneven family system and her place within it. 2 weeks after I moved out, she had visited my apartment with awkward curiosity, examining my modest living arrangements with newfound perspective. It's small, she observed, then caught herself. But it's really nice, having your own space. It suits my needs, I replied, neither defensive nor apologetic. She had wandered to my desk, noting the textbooks and research materials. Mom said you're working less this semester. I've adjusted my priorities now that I'm not supporting multiple households. Her gaze had dropped then, an uncomfortable recognition crossing her features. I never thanked you, she said quietly, for the things you paid for, even when you didn't know you were paying for them. That conversation marked a turning point between us, not immediate transformation, but the beginning of a more honest relationship built on recognition rather than competition. My grandparents arrive precisely on time, bearing a houseplant as a gift. Something that grows, my grandmother explains, for a life that's expanding. Uncle Mark and Aunt Carol follow shortly after, and dinner unfolds with a warmth that feels genuine rather than performed. The conversation flows naturally to my academic progress, my recent research publication, the summer internship I've secured in the city. We're so proud of what you're accomplishing, my grandfather says, his expression conveying more than the simple words. Especially now that you're not carrying extra financial burdens, Aunt Carol adds pointedly. Kira, surprisingly, joins this sentiment. Valerie's always been the responsible one, she acknowledges. I never realized how much that cost her. This recognition, freely offered rather than extracted, represents the healthiest outcome I could have hoped for from those difficult weeks. Not groveling apologies or dramatic reparations, but simple awareness of realities previously obscured. After dinner, as we enjoy the simple apple crisp I've prepared for dessert, my grandmother raises an unexpected topic. Your mother called me yesterday, upset about the family Easter plans. I maintain my composure, waiting for elaboration. She doesn't understand why you're not automatically planning to be at the house all weekend, my grandmother continues. I reminded her that adult children make independent choices about holidays. This represents another frontier in the ongoing boundary negotiations, the expectation that holiday observances still follow previous patterns despite our fundamentally altered relationship. I'll be there for Easter dinner, I explain. But the full weekend doesn't work with my schedule and priorities. My grandfather nods approvingly. Balance is important. Family connections matter, but not at the expense of your well-being. As the evening winds down, I feel a sense of alignment previously absent from family gatherings. Not perfect harmony, Kira still occasionally slips into old patterns. My grandparents sometimes struggle to fully comprehend the depth of what transpired, but a genuine effort to create healthier connections. After everyone leaves, I reflect on the significant shifts these months have brought. Financially, I've not only maintained stability, but improved my position by redirecting resources toward my own needs and goals. Academically, reduced work hours have allowed deeper engagement with my studies and professional development. Emotionally, the constant undercurrent of family obligation has been replaced by clearer, healthier boundaries. The dinner with my parents scheduled for next weekend represents the next challenge in this ongoing evolution. Their adjustment remains uneven, with my mother fluctuating between grudging acceptance and periodic attempts to reestablish former patterns. My father has adapted more pragmatically, recognizing the financial reality if not fully acknowledging the underlying issues. During our most recent phone conversation, my mother attempted a familiar guilt lever. "We miss having you around all the time. The house feels empty without you." "I miss aspects of home too," I replied honestly. "But this arrangement is healthier for everyone." "You always have a place here," she offered, presenting it as generosity rather than acknowledgement of my right to family belonging. "Thank you," I said simply, neither rejecting the sentiment nor accepting its implicit terms. I appreciate having connections in multiple places. My phone buzzes with a text from Ashley, checking in after the family dinner. "How did it go?" "Any drama?" "Surprisingly well," I reply. Progress isn't linear, but it's happening. As I prepare for bed, I review my calendar for the coming week, classes, research hours, a meeting with my academic advisor about graduate school applications. My life has expanded beyond the narrow focus of working to support others while maintaining academic excellence. There's space now for development, exploration, and genuine choice. The journey from that moment in the doorway, staring at my sister's belongings in my space while processing my mother's casual, "You can sleep on the couch now," to this peaceful evening in my own apartment hasn't been primarily about physical location. It's been about recognizing worth, establishing boundaries, and building a life defined by mutual respect rather than exploitation. I still maintain family connections, still participate in gatherings, still value the positive aspects of those relationships. But these connections now exist within clear parameters that protect my autonomy and dignity. The family that once relegated me to the couch now interacts with me as an independent adult with choices rather than obligations. The most profound transformation isn't visible in my living arrangements or financial situation, though both have significantly improved. It's in the internal shift from defining myself through others' expectations to recognizing my inherent right to basic dignity and respect. As I drift toward sleep, I realize the couch incident, painful as it was, provided the catalyst for this necessary evolution. Without that concrete manifestation of the underlying dynamic, I might have continued indefinitely in the role of family support system without recognition or reciprocity. Sometimes the path to a new beginning requires facing a painful truth that can no longer be ignored. In my case, that truth was delivered in my mother's casual words, "You can sleep on the couch now." But the final chapter of this story isn't being written on a couch, or even in this modest apartment. It's being written in the countless choices I now make from a position of clarity, strength, and self-determination. Choices that will shape a future defined by mutual respect rather than one-sided sacrifice.